Hi, welcome. So you've learned a lot in this challenge and you've probably done some of the projects and then recently you've seen Git and GitHub. So now I want to be sure that you're going to gain direct value immediately. So you're going to be able to get your projects on GitHub for those of you who've never done so. Share those links immediately, maybe today on your CV or on social media, and be able to show off your hard-earned skills over the past 89 days. So in this video, I'm just going to take the Python project, which we did most recently, show you how to push it to GitHub and create that link that you can add to your CV or share online so that it is practical. And I'm sure everybody will be able to do that and hit the ground running, gain that value immediately from this challenge. So let's just go straight to the computer and I'll show you how to do that. So here we have this project here. This is the project folder. This is where I have the project. So there is the income census data set, which we saw in the last video on Python project. That was the last for the Python series before the Git series. So you can always go back and take a look at that video. And then here is the Jupyter Notebook file. So I'm not going to open Jupyter Notebook directly because it will open in my drive C where it is stored, and then I'll be looking for these files all over the place. That's why I prefer to copy this address, go to Anaconda. It's there when you install Anaconda. This prompt is there by default. Do a change directory, space, Control V, press enter. So now I'm inside this folder, and everything I do inside this folder here will be saved here. I don't need to go around looking or trying to find them. So if I do now Jupyter Notebook, I would be having a Jupyter Notebook launch from within this folder. And then now here it is. So if, for example, we click here, the CSV file was a data file. You remember if you watched the video, and then we are saying this is an express data analysis. This is the whole project. And in that video, I was requesting that you complete this analysis and make it your own, and even add the conclusion at the end of what you found out. So just share this like an example, type something. So you can always complete this if you haven't completed it even today. Follow that video, and then now your objective is to push this now to GitHub practically, and which you apply this same procedure to the other projects of Power BI, SQL, and Excel. So let us head now straight to GitHub, create a repository like we've seen in some of these videos. So I'm going to go here, go to your here. So you can always create a new repository from here. So these are my repositories. So I'll just go here, go to new repository, and then let me just call this, say for example, Python EDA project, for example. So you can push any of your projects like this, so it is available. And then remember, we can go do add a public. We can also go ahead now and just, you could add a gitignore file. So if, for example, I type Python here, for example, I know I'll be using Python. So when I do that now, it's going to add a gitignore file, which would note some of the things in Python that we need to not push to GitHub. So you can do that when you're sure like that. Then you create your repository like we've seen in the past videos. And now we have this Python EDA project waiting for us to push things here. Just one commit, and that's just that initial. Then we go back here. So what we want to do now is to get this link, which we would use to be able to connect to this repository. So we are going to go back now here, so to this folder, and just launch our git bash from here. So right click there, launch git bash from here, so that it opens up in this folder. And then from here now, we are going to do now our, now we have this folder here. So we are just going to do our git status. So the first thing is to initialize. So we do our git init first, so that we have a .git. So now we have a .git here. Then we have this master, and then we go now to the git status. So we want to see, as you can see, these are the files that have not been pushed yet. These are the files that have not been pushed yet. The income census.csv, the Python EDA. And then this checkpoint is something that normally your git ignore should ignore this, so that only these two get pushed. That is one of the values of using git ignore. So you're going to tell git ignore a file called .ipython checkpoints like this should not be pushed online. It's just a safe point for my local. So let's move on. Then we do a git add dot. Now we check again the status. So git status, you see that our files are ready to be committed. So we can do a git commit -m space, and then we say quotes here, and then we say maybe first commit, for example, then we press now here. So now the next thing now is we need to connect this local with what is on GitHub. So, and here is the key, what we saw here, this here. So we need to copy this URL. I've clicked here, copy it, go back here, and then now we do our git. We've seen this already. I'm just putting this practically so that we hit the ground running. Git remote add origin. I've seen this in previous videos, so I'll not waste too much time to explain. So, and then we paste here. So now it seems as I need to get that copy well. So let me go back again there and copy it well again. So let me just go back. So here, add, and then now git remote add origin. Then I go back and copy that and paste. So let me go back there, copy, and then right click here and paste. Okay, that's good. So we press enter now. So now it is, this remote origin has been added. So I can now do a git push -u. Then now I now say origin master. So when you push that now, it says you have failed to push because you have hints here. Updates were rejected because the remote contains work that you do not have locally. So this is usually caused by another repository having the same thing. So for now, I'm just going to force push. So what I'll do is I'm going to do a git push. Then I'm going to add, let me just go back here and you see, so -f. So I'm going to force origin master. So if I do a force now, it's going to push all these files to GitHub. So -u, because I had the git ignore, I had other files that were created there. That's why it was not comfortable pushing without me doing a pull. So in the previous videos, we looked at pull. So, but then I'll push for the first time, knowing that I can always come back and add and push again. So now let me go back here and then I click on this. So I have these files here for now. So because my git ignore was lost, so I didn't get that IPython checkpoints here noted down. So which means now that here, if I want to, I should be able to create a new git ignore in this repository. So I should be able to create a new git ignore here so that it can ignore some of these things when next I'm pushing. So, but for now, this is the basic. This is what you can just start sharing immediately. And the more you learn how to use your git ignore, you know how to ignore this file. And then you can even also add a readme. You can add, for example, create a new file here, for example, like you saw. You can add a readme file here, or you can add your git ignore directly from here, .git ignore. So you can add your git ignore from here, for example, if you want. So you commit your changes, you have a .git ignore file, and you can even add a readme file here. So you can still go there, add a file. Then what you need to do now is you need to do a git pull to get, so you can go to your readme.md so that you have your readme file. You add, so we can add those here. So you have your readme file here, which is what is going to explain the project to anybody. Then you come back now to your code here. You're going to do now a git pull all of this down, which we have seen in a previous video. edit it from here, add the contents of the README, add the git ignore to ignore this .ipython checkpoints, and then you push back to GitHub like another commit. So you do another git add, git push. So that is something that if you review, you'll be able to do. So, but at the basic minimum, you have these files here right now, and you can even come here now and start editing your README file, and then you talk about the project here and share to anybody with this link here. So if I go back and let me just discard this. So if I go back now and I collect this link and I paste anywhere, you should be able to give me that repository. And this is what you're going to add now to your CV and be able to share your work, including the README file that you must have edited here. And if you don't bother about the git ignore, it's not a problem for a beginner. But if you look at the previous videos, you can be able to get this git ignore and be able to ignore these checkpoint files and other files that don't necessarily need to be here. So for now, it's good enough. You can always use this to share your work and be able to get it as a starting point. So I hope you've been able to see how to quickly start sharing your projects online in GitHub. There are some things that are for you, like assignment, to be able to use that .git ignore file to ignore those checkpoint files and be able to add the README description in your project so that people clearly know what you're talking about. So see you next video. Wish you good data.